My sister insisted I sign one paper just in case. She said it was for convenience, for family. I signed it without reading the last page. 3 days later, my bank called and asked why I was moving out of my own home. I'm not the kind of person who believes in omens. I fix things for a living, HVAC systems, electrical panels, building compliance issues. When something breaks, you troubleshoot it. You don't waste time wondering if the universe is sending you messages. But if I believed in omens, I would have paid attention to the way my sister Linda arranged those papers on my kitchen table. Too neat, too organized, like she'd practiced. It was a Tuesday afternoon in March. I'm 51 years old, and my body reminds me of that fact every single day. I walked into my house expecting silence and found Linda sitting at my kitchen table with a folder, a pen, and that smile she uses when she wants something. "Hey, stranger," she said. "Long time." It had been 3 months since Thanksgiving. We're not close. We're civil. There's a difference. "What's this about?" I asked, dropping my keys on the counter. "Family planning stuff," she said. "Nothing major. I've been talking to Paul and Denise, and we thought it would be smart to get some paperwork in order. You know, just in case." Paul is my son. 32 years old, married to Denise for 4 years. They live 20 minutes away and visit maybe twice a year. Denise is polite. Paul is distant. It's been that way since his mother died 8 years ago. I don't push it. People grieve differently. "What kind of paperwork?" I asked. Linda pulled out a document. Maybe 8 pages, stapled in the corner. Just an authorization form. Nothing complicated. It lets us handle things if you're ever incapacitated or need help managing stuff. Medical decisions, financial access, that kind of thing. Standard stuff everyone should have. I sat down across from her. My back was sore. I wanted a beer and a shower, not a conversation about my mortality. "I'm fine," I said. "I know you're fine. This isn't about now. It's about being prepared. Paul wanted me to bring it by since I was in the area." "Paul couldn't come himself?" "He's busy. Work thing." I picked up the document. The header read Family Authorization and Healthcare Directive. Legal language, dense paragraphs. My eyes glazed over after the first page. I'm good at reading blueprints and code violations. Legal documents make my head hurt. "Have you read this?" I asked. "Of course. It's standard. My lawyer helped draft it." "Your lawyer?" "Family lawyer. I used him for my estate planning last year. He's very good." I flipped through the pages. Clauses about healthcare proxies, financial institutions, residential arrangements. The language was thick and formal. I hate this stuff. Always have. "Why the rush?" I asked. Linda leaned forward. Her voice got softer, more concerned. "Dad had a stroke at your age. I just want to make sure we're covered if something happens. You live alone, you work alone. If something goes wrong, we need to be able to step in and help. Our father died at 53. Massive stroke. No warning. I was 27 when it happened. The memory is sharp enough to hurt." "Nothing's going to happen," I said. "You don't know that. None of us do. This is just responsible planning. It doesn't cost you anything. It just gives us the ability to help if we need to." I looked at the last page. Signature lines, witness lines, a notary seal already stamped at the bottom. Dated today. "You brought a notary?" "She's outside. I didn't want to make you run around looking for one. It's easier this way." Something felt off. I couldn't name it. Just a tightness in my chest. A sense that the conversation was moving faster than I could track. "Let me read this first," I said. "Of course. Take your time." But she didn't mean it. I could tell by the way she kept glancing at her watch, the way her fingers drummed against the table. She wanted this done. Fast. I started reading. The first section was about medical decisions. If I was unconscious or incapacitated, Linda and Paul would have the authority to make choices on my behalf. Fair enough. The second section was about financial access. If I was unable to manage my accounts, they could step in temporarily. Reasonable. The third section was about residential arrangements. If I was no longer able to live independently, they could facilitate a transition to assisted living or other appropriate accommodations. That section bothered me. I'm 51. I'm healthy. I don't need assisted living. "This part here," I said, pointing. "About residential stuff. It's just a precaution. In case you have a medical emergency and need rehab or something, it gives us the authority to move you to a facility if needed." "I don't plan on needing a facility." "Nobody plans on it, Tom. That's the point." I kept reading. The language was dense. full of phrases like irrevocable authorization and binding upon execution. I didn't understand half of it, but Linda seemed confident, and Paul apparently wanted this. My own son. If he thought it was necessary, maybe it was. "Where's the notary?" I asked. "In the car. Should I get her?" "Let me finish reading." I flipped to the last page, the signature section. My name was already typed in, 3 lines, one for me, one for Linda as witness, one for the notary. I noticed something odd. The last page was stapled separately from the rest of the document, like it had been added after the fact. "Why is this page stapled different?" I asked. Linda barely glanced at it. "Probably just how the lawyer printed it. Sometimes the signature page gets added separately." It seemed weird, but then again, I don't deal with legal documents every day. Maybe that's normal. I read the paragraph above the signature line. It was full of the same dense language. Acknowledgement of terms, understanding of authority granted, voluntarily executed. I skimmed it. My eyes were tired. My back hurt. I just wanted this over with. "You really think this is necessary?" I asked. "I do, and so does Paul. We're family, Tom. We just want to make sure you're taken care of." The word family hit me harder than it should have, because we're not much of one. Not anymore. Not since Janet died. She was the glue, the one who organized holidays and remembered birthdays and made sure Paul called his father. Without her, we're just people who share DNA and don't know what to say to each other. But maybe this was Linda trying. Maybe this was her way of bridging the gap, of showing she cared. "Fine," I said. "Get the notary." Linda stood up fast. Too fast. Like she'd been holding her breath. She walked out to the driveway and came back 30 seconds later with a woman in her 40s carrying a stamp and a logbook. The notary was professional, efficient. She checked my ID, watched me sign, added her seal, and left without small talk. The whole thing took 3 minutes. Linda gathered the papers, slipped them back into the folder, and smiled. "Thanks, Tom. I know this feels like a hassle, but it's really for the best." "What happens now?" I asked. "Nothing. We file this with the county, and it's on record. You won't even notice it. And if I need to change it, you can. Anytime. Just let us know." She left. I sat at the kitchen table for a while, staring at the spot where the papers had been. Something still felt off, but I couldn't name it. So I got up, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and took that shower. 3 days later, my bank called. I was in the middle of inspecting a rooftop AC unit at a commercial building in Fontana when my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but it had the local area code. I almost didn't answer, but work's been slow lately, and I can't afford to miss potential clients. "This is Tom," I said. "Mr. Brennan?" A woman's voice. Professional. Cautious. "This is Jessica Ortiz from Valley Regional Bank. Do you have a moment?" "I'm working. What's this about?" "I'm calling regarding your accounts. We received notification of a residential transition and wanted to confirm some details." I climbed down from the ladder, suddenly alert. "Residential transition? What are you talking about?" There was a pause. Papers rustling. "According to the documentation we received, you're in the process of relocating. We need to update your mailing address and verify some access permissions." "I'm not relocating. I don't know what you're talking about." Another pause. Longer this time. "Mr. Brennan, we have legal documentation on file indicating that your residential status is transitioning to supervised care. This was submitted by your healthcare proxy, Linda Brennan, 3 days ago." The words didn't make sense. I stood in the parking lot, holding my phone, feeling like the ground had shifted under my feet. Supervised care? I'm standing on a roof. I'm working. I'm not in supervised care. "I understand this may be confusing," Jessica said, "but according to the authorization we received, your sister has been granted temporary conservatorship to facilitate your transition to assisted living due to health concerns." "I don't have health concerns. I didn't authorize this." "Sir, we have your signature on file. The document was notarized and legally binding. If you'd like to dispute it, you'll need to contact your attorney." My hands were shaking. What does this mean for my accounts? For now, nothing. But we do need to update your contact information, and if your residential transition proceeds, we'll need to adjust access permissions accordingly. Access permissions. Your sister will have co-signatory authority on your accounts to assist with the transition. I wanted to throw the phone across the parking lot. Instead, I forced my voice to stay calm. "I need to see this documentation. Can you send it to me?" "We can provide copies, but the original is on file with the county. You may want to contact them directly." I hung up, stood there, tried to process what I'd just heard. Supervised care, conservatorship, Assisted living. I drove home, broke every speed limit. My mind was racing. This had to be a mistake, some kind of clerical error. Linda wouldn't do this. She was my sister. She was trying to help. But the bank said they had documentation, my signature, notarized, legally binding. I pulled into my driveway, got out of the truck, and walked to my front door. Put my key in the lock, turned it. Nothing happened. I tried again, jiggled the key, pushed the door, locked. But not by my lock. By a different mechanism. Something internal. I walked around to the back door. Same thing. My key didn't work. I stood in my own backyard, staring at the house I'd lived in for 20 years, and understood with perfect clarity that I'd been played. That document wasn't about healthcare. It wasn't about family planning. It was about taking my house, my accounts, my life, and I'd signed it. I didn't break the door down. I wanted to. Every muscle in my body was screaming at me to kick it in, to smash a window, to storm inside and reclaim what was mine. But I'm not stupid. Breaking into your own house when the locks have been changed is a great way to end up in handcuffs explaining to cops that you're not actually a criminal. And I had a feeling that was exactly what Linda wanted. So I stood there in my backyard for 5 minutes, breathing hard, thinking. Then I got back in my truck and drove to Paul's house. He lives in one of those new developments where every house looks identical except for the color of the garage door. Beige stucco, drought-resistant landscaping, a HOA-approved everything. Denise's car was in the driveway, a gray Accord, clean, practical, exactly like her. I knocked, waited, knocked again. Denise opened the door. She was wearing yoga pants and a pullover. Her hair was pulled back. She looked surprised to see me, but not shocked, like she'd been expecting this conversation eventually. "Tom," she said, "this isn't a great time. I need to talk to Paul. He's not here. He's at work. Then I'll wait. Tom, please, let's not do this." "Do what? Talk to my own son?" She glanced over her shoulder, then stepped outside and pulled the door closed behind her, like she didn't want me in the house, like I was a threat. "Paul doesn't want to see you right now," she said. "Why not?" "Because this whole situation is complicated and emotional, and he needs space to process it." "What situation? The one where my sister locked me out of my own house?" Denise crossed her arms. Her voice stayed calm. Too calm. Like she'd rehearsed this. "Linda did what needed to be done. You're not taking care of yourself. You're isolated. You're not thinking clearly. I'm standing right here. I'm thinking perfectly clearly." "Are you?" "Because Paul's been worried about you for months. You don't return calls. You barely visit. You're living alone in that house with no support system. Something needed to change." I stared at her. This woman I barely knew. This stranger my son married. Who was she to decide what I needed? "Where's Paul?" I asked again. "I told you, he's at work." "What's his schedule?" "Tom, I'm not giving you his schedule. He'll reach out when he's ready." "When he's ready, my own son." Denise softened slightly. Not much, just enough to seem human. "This isn't about punishing you. It's about protecting you. Linda explained everything. You signed the papers. You agreed to the arrangement. Now we just need to follow through." "I didn't agree to anything. I signed a medical directive, not a real estate transfer. It was all in the document. You just didn't read it carefully enough." The truth of that statement hit me like a fist. She was right. I hadn't read it carefully. I'd skimmed, I'd trusted. I'd been lazy and stupid, and now I was locked out of my own life. "I want to talk to Paul," I said. "Face to face. That's all I'm asking." "Not today." "When?" "I don't know. He'll let you know." She went back inside. The door closed, the lock clicked. I sat in my truck for a while, parked across the street, watching their house, waiting for Paul to come home. But an hour passed and he didn't show. Eventually, a neighbor came out and stared at me, suspicious, like I was casing the place. So I left. I needed to see that document, the real version, the one I'd actually signed. I drove to the county clerk's office. It was late afternoon. The building was busy, lines at every window. I waited 20 minutes before reaching a clerk. She was in her 60s, tired, impatient. "I need to see a document that was filed this week," I said. "What type of document?" "Healthcare directive or conservatorship. I'm not sure what it's labeled." "Name?" "Thomas Brennan." She typed, frowned, typed more. "I'm showing a residential authorization agreement filed on March 19th. Is that what you're looking for?" "Yes." "That'll be $5 for a copy." I paid. She printed it, handed it to me across the counter. I found a bench in the hallway and read. The first 7 pages were exactly what I remembered. medical decisions, financial access, standard language. But the last page, the one that had been stapled separately, was different. The paragraph above my signature wasn't about healthcare. It was about residential transfer. It granted Linda and Paul full authority to facilitate my relocation from my current residence to an appropriate care facility. It stated that I acknowledged my inability to maintain independent living. It gave them power of attorney to manage my property, my finances, and my personal affairs during the transition period. And it stated that the authorization was irrevocable for a period of 6 months. 6 months. I couldn't undo this for 6 months. The paragraph was printed in slightly smaller font than the rest of the document, like it had been formatted separately. Added later, I'd signed below it without reading it, without questioning it. Because Linda had rushed me, because the notary was waiting, because I was tired and my back hurt and I trusted my own sister. I sat on that bench for a long time. People walked past me, office workers, lawyers, families. Nobody noticed the man holding a piece of paper that had just destroyed his life. I tried calling Linda. Voicemail. I tried again. Voicemail. I drove to her house. She lives in a condo development near the golf course. Her car wasn't in the garage. I waited for an hour. She didn't come home. By then it was getting dark. I needed a place to sleep. I couldn't go home. I couldn't go to Paul's. I didn't have friends close enough to impose on. Janet had friends. I had coworkers. There's a difference. I checked into a Motel 6 off the highway. $48 a night. The room smelled like cigarettes and bleach. The TV didn't work. I lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling and tried to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do now. The document was legal. I'd signed it. A notary had witnessed it. The county had filed it. Unless I could prove I was coerced or mentally incompetent, there was no immediate way to reverse it. And proving coercion meant lawyers. Thousands of dollars. Months of court battles. All while Linda and Paul had access to my house, my accounts, my entire life. I didn't have that kind of money. I didn't have that kind of time. I needed a different strategy. I thought about the document, the language, the specifics. It granted Linda and Paul authority to facilitate my relocation, to manage my affairs during the transition, but it didn't actually force me to relocate. It just gave them the power to start the process. And processes require steps, approvals, paperwork. I worked in building compliance. I knew how systems worked, how bureaucracies moved, how things got delayed when the right person didn't sign off. If they wanted to move me, they'd need my cooperation, or they'd need to prove I was incapable of independent living. That would require medical evaluations, psychiatric assessments, documentation, and that took time. I could slow them down. I could make this hard. I could force them to work for every inch. But that was defensive. That was survival. That wasn't revenge. And I wanted revenge. I thought about Linda's smile when I signed the papers. The way she'd rushed me. The way she'd had everything prepared. The notary waiting in the car. The last page stapled separately. This wasn't spontaneous. This was planned, calculated. She'd been preparing for this for weeks, maybe months, and Paul had been part of it. My own son. He'd known what Linda was planning, and he'd approved it. He'd avoided seeing me, avoided my calls, because he knew what was coming. They thought I'd roll over. They thought I'd be too confused, too overwhelmed, too broken to fight back. They didn't know me. Not really. Janet knew me. She knew what I was capable of when someone pushed me too far. She'd seen it once, years ago, when a contractor tried to scam us out of $15,000 on a kitchen renovation. I didn't yell. I didn't threaten. I just quietly documented every code violation in his work, reported him to the state licensing board, and made sure every builder in 3 counties knew his name. He was out of business in 6 months. Janet had looked at me afterward and said, "Remind me never to cross you." I smiled at the memory. Then the smile faded. Because Janet wasn't here anymore, and the people who were supposed to care about me had just proven they didn't. Fine. If they wanted to play this game, I'd play, but I'd play smarter, quieter, and I'd make damn sure they regretted starting it. I pulled out my phone, opened the Notes app, started making a list. First, I needed to understand exactly what authority they had. The document mentioned financial access. That meant they could request information from my bank, maybe even make transactions if they claimed it was necessary for my care. But they couldn't drain my accounts. Not yet. Not without additional court orders. I needed to protect my money. Move it somewhere they couldn't reach. Second, I needed to understand the timeline. The document was irrevocable for 6 months. That meant Linda and Paul had 6 months to complete the residential transition. If they didn't finish it in that time, the authorization expired and I could reclaim full control. 6 months. I could survive 6 months. Third, I needed leverage. Something they wanted. something they needed me for. I thought about my work. I'd been doing building compliance for 23 years. I knew systems, I knew codes, I knew which buildings were up to standard and which ones were disasters waiting to happen, and I knew which properties Paul and Denise had invested in. 3 years ago, Paul mentioned he and Denise were buying rental properties, building a portfolio. I hadn't paid much attention at the time, but I remembered the neighborhood, Garden Grove, older buildings, mixed use, commercial and residential. If they owned property, they needed inspections, permits, code compliance, and I knew every inspector in the county. I made another note. Then I set my phone down and closed my eyes. Tomorrow I'd start gathering information, I'd figure out what they owned, what they needed, what I could control. Tonight I'd sleep in a motel that smelled like failure and plan my next move. They thought they'd won. They thought it was over. They were wrong. The next 2 weeks were quiet. Too quiet. I kept waiting for Linda to call, for Paul to reach out, for something to happen. But nothing did. I stayed in motels, moved every few days, paid in cash. I didn't want them tracking me. Didn't want to make it easy. I kept withdrawing money from ATMs. $500 a day, 10 days, $5,000 total. Combined with the wire to Tony, I had most of my savings out of their reach. The remaining $6,000 I left in the account. Let them think they still had access. Let them think I hadn't figured it out. I worked, took inspection jobs, cash only, under the table. I couldn't afford to have income reported, couldn't risk them finding out where I was. But mostly I watched. I drove past Paul's house twice a day, morning and evening, watched them leave for work, watched them come home, normal routine, like nothing had changed, like they hadn't just stolen their father's life. I also watched the Garden Grove properties, checked for signs of work, contractors, permits posted, anything, nothing. Denise was having trouble. I could tell. I called one of my contractor friends, asked if she'd reached out again. 3 times, he said. I keep telling her I'm booked. Good. She's getting desperate. She offered me 20% over my normal rate. Don't take it. Tom, that's serious money. I know. Just hold out a little longer. He agreed, but I could hear the hesitation in his voice. On day 12, something changed. I was driving past Paul's house in the morning when I saw a car I didn't recognize. A black BMW, parked in the driveway. Someone was inside talking to Paul and Denise. Through the window, I could see them sitting at the kitchen table. Papers spread out. Serious conversation. I parked down the street. Waited. 40 minutes later, the BMW left. I didn't follow it, but I recognized the plates. Vanity plates. LGLPRO, legal professional. They'd hired a lawyer. I drove to a coffee shop, ordered a drink, sat in the corner and thought. This could mean several things. Maybe they were trying to expedite the residential transition. Maybe they were filing additional paperwork to tighten their control. Maybe they were trying to figure out how to counter what I'd been doing. Or maybe they were panicking. I needed more information. I called Tony. Tom, how's the war going? I don't know yet. They just met with a lawyer. That's not good. Or it means they're scared. Maybe. What are you going to do? Keep pushing. Make things harder. Just be careful. Lawyers mean they're taking this seriously. So am I. I hung up, pulled out my laptop, searched for property lawyers in Orange County, found a few with vanity plates. None matched LGLPRO. But I found one firm that specialized in real estate disputes, Paxton and Associates. Their managing partner drove a black BMW. I called the firm, asked for the managing partner, got his assistant. I'd like to schedule a consultation, I said. I'm dealing with a property compliance issue. What type of compliance issue? Code violations, potential red tagging. I need advice on how to expedite resolution. I see. Let me check the calendar. Can you come in next week? I need to come in sooner. This is time sensitive. We're booked through next week, but if it's urgent, I can see if Mr. Paxton has a cancellation. That would be great. She put me on hold. Came back 2 minutes later. Mr. Paxton can see you tomorrow at 2. Does that work? Perfect. I gave her a fake name. Hung up. Then I drove to the firm's office. It was in a high-rise near the courthouse. Glass windows, expensive furniture in the lobby. These weren't cheap lawyers, which meant Paul and Denise were spending serious money. I didn't go inside, just wanted to confirm the location, then I left. Tomorrow I'd go back, pretend to be a client, see if I could learn anything. But tonight, I had something else to do. I drove to Garden Grove, parked across from one of Paul's properties, the one with the electrical violations. It was after dark. The building was mostly empty, a few lights on in the apartments upstairs, but the retail space on the ground floor was vacant. I got out of my truck, walked across the street, looked at the building, old, paint peeling. The electrical panel was on the exterior wall, locked behind a metal cage, but I could see it through the bars. Ancient, rusted, definitely a fire hazard. I took pictures with my phone, multiple angles. Then I walked around the building, checked the back entrance, the fire exits, the parking lot. Everything was marginal. Not illegal, but close. One more violation, and this place would be shut down. I smiled. Then I saw movement. Someone in the second floor window, watching me. I walked back to my truck, got in, drove away. My phone rang 10 minutes later. Unknown number. I answered. Yeah. Is this Thomas Brennan? A man's voice. Professional, calm. Who's asking? My name is Robert Paxton. I'm an attorney representing Paul and Denise Brennan. I understand you've been harassing my clients. I haven't harassed anyone. You've been parked outside their properties, taking pictures, contacting their contractors, interfering with their business. I'm allowed to take pictures of buildings from public property. I'm allowed to talk to contractors. None of that is illegal. It is if it's done with the intent to harm their business interests. Prove intent? There was a pause. Mr. Brennan, I'm calling to inform you that if this behavior continues, we'll be filing a restraining order. You'll be prohibited from contacting my clients or approaching their properties. File whatever you want. I'm also informing you that we're prepared to expedite the residential transition process. We have medical professionals ready to testify that you're not capable of independent living. If you continue to resist, we'll petition the court for immediate conservatorship. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. You can't do that. We can, and we will. The agreement you signed gives us the authority to act in your best interest. If you're actively working against that interest, we can argue that you're a danger to yourself. I'm not a danger to anyone. That's not for you to decide. I pulled over, sat on the side of the road, tried to keep my voice steady. What do you want? I want you to stop interfering. Stop contacting contractors, stop watching their properties, and stop making this harder than it needs to be. And if I don't, then we'll take this to court, and you'll lose. You'll end up in a facility whether you like it or not, and you'll have burned through what little money you have fighting us. I don't have money for lawyers. Exactly. Which is why you should stop now. Cooperate. Make this easy. You'll be taken care of. You'll be safe. And everyone can move on. I wanted to reach through the phone and strangle him. Instead, I said, I'll think about it. Don't think too long. My clients are prepared to move forward aggressively if necessary. He hung up. I sat there, breathing hard, trying to think. They were escalating. Lawyers, restraining orders, medical testimony. They were building a case, and I didn't have the resources to fight it. But I had something they didn't. I had nothing to lose. I didn't show up for the fake consultation with Paxton. No point. I'd heard what I needed to hear. They were preparing for a legal fight, which meant they were scared. Scared people make mistakes. I spent the next 3 days gathering information. I went to the county assessor's office, pulled records on every property Linda owned. Turned out she had more than I thought. 2 rental properties in Anaheim, 1 vacation condo in Palm Springs, all mortgaged, all leveraged. I also pulled her tax records, public information. Anyone can request them. She'd claimed rental income losses for the past 2 years, which meant her properties weren't making money, which meant she was underwater. That explained why she needed Paul's investments to succeed. If his properties failed, hers would collapse too. She was using one debt to cover another. Classic house of cards. I made copies of everything. Put them in a folder. Then I drove to the main branch of Valley Regional Bank, the one where Jessica Ortiz worked. I asked for her specifically. Waited 20 minutes. She came out from the back, recognized me immediately, looked uncomfortable. Mr. Brennan, she said, how can I help you? I need to discuss my account, privately. She led me to a small office, closed the door, sat down behind a desk. If this is about the residential authorization, she said, I can't help you. That's a legal matter. You'll need to speak with an attorney. I'm not here about that. I'm here to report potential fraud. Her expression changed. What kind of fraud? My sister Linda Brennan has co-signatory authority on my account, but she obtained that authority under false pretenses. I signed a document I was told was a healthcare directive. Turns out it was a property transfer authorization. I believe she intentionally misrepresented the document to gain access to my finances. Jessica leaned back. That's a serious accusation. I have proof. I pulled out the document, showed her the last page. This paragraph was formatted differently, added separately. I was rushed during the signing. The notary was waiting. I believe Linda deliberately concealed the true nature of the document. Do you have evidence she concealed it? I have the document itself. You can see the formatting difference. And I have testimony from the notary. If you subpoena her, I'm sure she'll confirm Linda had the papers pre-prepared. Jessica looked at the document, frowned. Mr. Brennan, I sympathize. But this is a legal issue. The document was notarized. You signed it. Unless you can prove you were mentally incompetent or physically coerced, the bank has to honor it. Then freeze the account. I can't freeze your account without a court order. You can flag it for suspicious activity. You can require additional verification before any transactions. You can do a lot of things if you suspect fraud. She hesitated. What do you want me to do? Flag the account. Require in-person verification for any withdrawals over $500, and notify me immediately if Linda or anyone else tries to access it. That's highly irregular. So is stealing someone's house. Jessica looked at me, really looked at me. I could see her processing, calculating, deciding if I was telling the truth or if I was just a desperate man trying to create problems. Finally, she said, I'll flag the account for review. That's all I can do. If Linda tries to make any transactions, we'll require additional documentation. But I can't stop her from accessing the account entirely. She has legal authority. Thank you. I left the bank, got back in my truck, felt a small sense of victory. It wasn't much, but it was something. Next, I drove to the Garden Grove property, the one with the electrical violations. It was mid-afternoon. A few people were coming and going from the apartments upstairs. I parked across the street, waited. 30 minutes later, a city inspector showed up. Not Jerry Pacheco, someone else. Younger, serious-looking. He got out of his car, walked to the building, took pictures of the electrical panel, then went inside. I waited. 20 minutes later, he came out, looked frustrated, got in his car, and left. I called Jerry. Tom, what do you want now? I just saw an inspector at the Brennan property. Who was it? That was Matthews. He's doing a follow-up inspection. What did he find? Same thing I found. Outdated panel. No progress on repairs. He extended the deadline by 1 week. After that, the building gets red-tagged. 1 week? Yeah, and Tom? You need to back off. Matthews mentioned someone's been hanging around the property, taking pictures. If you get caught interfering with an official inspection, that's a crime. I'm not interfering. I'm observing. Just be careful. I hung up. 1 week. That was the timeline. I needed to make sure Paul and Denise didn't meet it. I called my contractor friend again, the one who'd been turning down Denise's calls. Tom, I can't keep doing this. She's offering double my normal rate now. Just 1 more week. That's all I need. A week? 1 week? After that you can take the job? I don't care. He sighed. Fine. 1 week. I called the other 2 contractors, said the same thing. One agreed, the other refused. Tom, I'm sorry, but I need the work. I've got bills. I understand. She already hired me. I'm starting tomorrow. My chest tightened. What kind of work? Electrical panel replacement. She's paying cash up front. I couldn't say no. Who else is she working with? Just me. She couldn't find anyone else willing to work this fast. I thanked him and hung up. This was bad. If they got the work done in the next week, they'd clear the violation. The building would stay open. Income would keep flowing, and I'd lose my leverage. I couldn't let that happen. I drove to a hardware store, bought a few things. Then I drove back to the Garden Grove property. It was late afternoon now. The sun was setting. The building was quiet. I parked a block away, walked to the property, looked around, nobody watching. The electrical panel was on the exterior wall, locked behind a metal cage. But the cage was old, rusted hinges. It wouldn't take much to break in. Oh, I didn't break in. That would be vandalism, a crime, and I wasn't stupid. Instead, I took more pictures, close-ups of the panel, the wiring, the rust, the damage. Then I called the fire marshal's office. I'd like to report a fire hazard, I said. What type of hazard? Exposed electrical panel on a commercial building, significant rust, potential arcing. I think it needs immediate inspection. What's the address? I gave them the address. They said they'd send someone to check it out. I hung up, walked back to my truck, drove away. If the fire marshal red-tagged the building before the contractor finished the work, Paul and Denise would be screwed. They'd lose weeks dealing with emergency repairs. And by then, Jerry's original deadline would expire. It was a gamble, but it was the best move I had. I drove back to my motel, checked in, lay on the bed, and stared at the ceiling. My phone rang. Linda. I almost didn't answer, but I wanted to hear her voice. Wanted to know if she was panicking yet. "Hello," I said. "Tom, we need to talk." "About what?" "About you sabotaging Paul's properties. About you calling inspectors. About you interfering with contractors." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Bullshit. I know it's you, and I'm done playing games. If you don't stop, I'm going to make sure you're in a locked facility by the end of the month." "You can't do that." "Watch me. I've got doctors ready to testify you're a danger to yourself. I've got lawyers ready to file emergency conservatorship. You're isolated, you're paranoid, you're acting erratically. It's not hard to build a case." I sat up. "You're bluffing." "I'm not, and you know I'm not. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to stop interfering, you're going to cooperate with the transition, and in return, I'll make sure you're placed somewhere nice, somewhere comfortable. And if I don't, then you'll end up somewhere much worse, and you'll have no say in it." She hung up. I sat there, hands shaking. Not from fear, from rage. She thought she had me cornered. She thought I'd give up. She was wrong. The fire marshal showed up at the Garden Grove property the next morning. I wasn't there to see it, but I heard about it from Jerry. The marshal took one look at the electrical panel and red-tagged the entire building. Immediate evacuation. No occupancy until the hazard was resolved. Jerry called me that afternoon. "Tom, what the hell did you do?" "I reported a fire hazard, that's all." "The fire marshal shut down the entire building. Paul Brennan is losing thousands of dollars a day in rental income, and he's blaming me." "You didn't do anything wrong." "I know I didn't, but now he's threatening to file a complaint against me. Says I should have caught the fire hazard in my original inspection." "Did you?" "No, because it wasn't there then. Someone damaged that panel between my inspection and the fire marshal's visit." I went quiet. "Tom," Jerry said, "tell me you didn't." "I didn't damage anything. I just took pictures and called it in." "Someone damaged it. The fire marshal's report says there's fresh scoring on the panel, like someone tried to force the cage open." "That wasn't me." "Then who was it?" "I don't know. Maybe it was already damaged and nobody noticed." Jerry sighed. "If this comes back on me, we're done. You understand that?" "I understand." He hung up. I sat in my truck, thinking. I hadn't damaged the panel. I'd thought about it, considered it, but I hadn't done it, which meant someone else had, or something else had happened. Maybe the cage was already loose. Maybe it finally gave way. Maybe the fire marshal saw something that wasn't there before but had been developing for months. Or maybe someone was setting me up. I called my contractor friend, the one who'd agreed to do the work for Denise. "Did you start the job yet?" I asked. "No. She called me last night and canceled. Said the building got red-tagged. Told me she'd call when it was resolved." "Did she sound angry?" "She sounded furious. She kept asking if I knew anything about the fire marshal inspection. If I'd reported anything. I told her no." "Did she believe you?" "I don't know. Probably not." I hung up. This was escalating faster than I'd expected. The building was shut down. Paul and Denise were losing money. Linda was panicking, and they were all looking for someone to blame. And they knew it was me. I needed to move fast, before they filed that emergency conservatorship, before they got doctors involved, before they locked me up somewhere I couldn't fight back. I drove to Paul's house. It was early evening. His car was in the driveway. So was Denise's, and so was Linda's. They were all there, together, planning their next move. I sat in my truck across the street, watched the house, lights on in the kitchen, shadows moving behind the curtains. My phone rang. Robert Paxton, the lawyer. I answered. "Mr. Brennan, we need to meet." "I don't think so." "This isn't optional. We're filing emergency conservatorship paperwork tomorrow morning. You have one chance to contest it before it goes through. I suggest you take it." "On what grounds are you filing?" "On the grounds that you're engaging in destructive behavior, sabotaging your son's business, refusing to cooperate with the residential transition, acting in ways that demonstrate you're not capable of managing your own affairs." "I haven't done anything illegal." "You've interfered with commercial operations. You've caused financial harm to your family members. And you've demonstrated an inability to make rational decisions. That's enough." "You can't prove any of that." "We don't need to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. This is a civil matter. We just need to show preponderance of evidence, and we have that. Photos of you watching their properties, phone records showing you contacted their contractors, testimony from your sister about your declining mental state. My mental state is fine. That's not for you to decide. I closed my eyes, tried to stay calm. What do you want? I want you to come to my office tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. We'll discuss a resolution. What kind of resolution? The kind where you cooperate with the transition and we don't pursue emergency conservatorship. The kind where you end up in a decent facility instead of a state institution. And if I don't come, then we file the paperwork and you lose all control. Your choice. He hung up. I sat there, breathing hard, feeling the walls close in. They had me. They really had me. Unless I did something drastic. I got out of my truck, walked across the street, rang the doorbell. Denise opened the door. Her face went pale. Tom, you can't be here. I need to talk to Paul. He doesn't want to talk to you. I don't care what he wants. He's my son. I have a right to talk to him. Linda appeared behind Denise. Tom, leave. Now. No. I'm calling the police. Go ahead. I'm standing on a public sidewalk. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm just asking to talk to my own son. Paul appeared. He looked tired, stressed, older than his 32 years. Dad, you need to go. Paul, please, just listen to me for 5 minutes. There's nothing to say. There's everything to say. You're trying to lock me up. You're trying to take my house. You're trying to erase me from your life. That's not what this is about. Then what is it about? He looked at Denise, then at Linda, then back at me. It's about keeping you safe. You're not okay. You're not taking care of yourself. You need help. I don't need help. I need my family to stop lying to me. We're not lying. You are. All of you. You tricked me into signing that document. You locked me out of my house. You're trying to steal everything I have. Linda stepped forward. Tom, you're being paranoid. Nobody's stealing anything. We're trying to help you. Help me? You changed my locks. You tried to access my bank accounts. You're shutting down Paul's properties to force me to cooperate. We're not shutting down anything. You did that. You called the fire marshal. You sabotaged the electrical panel. I didn't touch that panel. Then who did? I don't know. Maybe it was already damaged. Maybe you're making it up. Linda's face hardened. Oh, you're out of control. And tomorrow morning we're filing emergency conservatorship. You'll be placed in a facility by the end of the week, and there's nothing you can do about it. I looked at Paul. Is that what you want? He didn't answer. Paul, I'm asking you, is this what you want? He looked down. I think it's for the best. The words hit me like a punch. My own son, my only child. The kid I'd raised, the kid I'd loved, he wanted me gone. I turned and walked back to my truck. Got in, drove away. I didn't go back to the motel. I drove out to the desert, parked on the side of the road, sat there in the dark, and I made a decision. If they wanted a war, I'd give them a war. But I wasn't going to fight fair anymore. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my truck on the side of Highway 62, staring at the dark desert, and planned. They thought they had me cornered. They thought tomorrow morning they'd file their paperwork and I'd be done. Locked up, erased. They'd sell my house, liquidate my accounts, and move on with their lives like I'd never existed. But they were wrong about one thing. They thought I had nothing left to lose. I did have something, one thing, and I was about to use it. At 4 a.m, I drove to a 24-hour copy shop in Riverside, used their computers, printed documents, made copies, compiled everything into a folder, property records showing Linda's mortgages, tax returns showing her rental losses, the residential authorization document with the formatting discrepancy, photos of the Garden Grove properties, Jerry's violation reports, the fire marshal's inspection report, phone logs showing Denise's calls to contractors, and a timeline. Everything that had happened since I signed that document. Dates, times, actions, a clear pattern of coordination. It wasn't proof of fraud, not legally, but it was enough to create questions, enough to make people look twice. I put everything in a folder. Then I made 3 more copies, 4 folders total. 1 for the district attorney's office, 1 for the State Bar Association, 1 for the local newspaper, and 1 for me. I drove to the DA's office first. They didn't open until 8, but I waited in the parking lot. When the doors opened, I walked inside. Asked to speak to someone about potential elder abuse. They directed me to a receptionist. She directed me to a form. I filled it out, attached my folder, handed it back. Someone will review this and contact you if they have questions, she said. How long does that take? Could be a few days, could be a few weeks. Depends on the caseload. Not fast enough. But it was a start. Next, I drove to the State Bar Association. Same process. Filed a complaint against Robert Paxton for facilitating potential fraud. Attached evidence. Got a case number. Then I drove to the local newspaper, asked for the city desk, got directed to a reporter named Michelle Harding. She was young, mid-30s, sharp eyes. I have a story, I said. What kind of story? Elder abuse. Family members using legal documents to steal property from a parent. She looked skeptical. That's a serious accusation. I have documentation. I handed her the folder. She flipped through it, stopped at the residential authorization document, frowned. This formatting is weird. Exactly. And you're saying your sister deliberately concealed this paragraph when she had you sign it? Yes. Can you prove that? I can prove the formatting is different. I can prove the page was stapled separately. I can prove she rushed me through the signing. I can prove she had the notary waiting. That's enough to create reasonable doubt. Michelle kept reading. And these properties? Your son owns them? With my sister's financial backing, if they fail, she loses everything. So you're saying she coerced you into signing this document to protect her investment? I'm saying she saw an opportunity and took it. Michelle set down the folder. This is interesting, but I can't run a story based on your word alone. I'd need to interview your sister, your son, get their side. Then interview them. If I do that, they'll know you're talking to the press. They'll file that conservatorship even faster. They're filing it today anyway. I've got nothing to lose. She studied me. Are you okay? You look like you haven't slept. I haven't. Where are you staying? Motels. My sister changed the locks on my house. Jesus. She picked up the folder again. All right, I'll look into this. But I'm not promising anything. That's all I'm asking. I left the newspaper office. It was almost 10. Time for my meeting with Paxton. I drove to his office, took the elevator to the 15th floor, walked into a waiting room with leather couches and abstract art on the walls. The receptionist looked up. Mr. Brennan? Yes. Mr. Paxton is ready for you. This way. She led me to a conference room. Paxton was there. So was Linda, and Paul, and Denise. All of them, together, waiting for me. I sat down across from them. Paxton spoke first. Mr. Brennan, thank you for coming. I know this situation is difficult, but we're here to find a resolution. What kind of resolution? The kind where you agree to cooperate with the residential transition. We'll arrange placement in a quality facility, somewhere comfortable. You'll be taken care of, and we won't pursue emergency conservatorship. And if I don't agree? Then we file the paperwork this afternoon. A judge will review it, and given your recent behavior, I'm confident we'll get approval. You'll be placed in a state facility pending evaluation, and you'll have no say in the matter. I looked at Linda. She stared back, cold, unapologetic. Then I looked at Paul. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I have a counteroffer, I said. Paxton frowned. What kind of counteroffer? You reverse the residential authorization, you remove your names from my accounts, you give me my house back, and I won't press charges. Press charges for what? Fraud, coercion, elder abuse. Linda laughed. You can't prove any of that. Maybe not, but I can make noise, I can file complaints, I can talk to reporters, I can make sure everyone knows what you did. That's not a counteroffer, Paxton said. That's a threat. Call it what you want, but here's the reality. If you pursue conservatorship, I'm going public. I'm talking to every reporter who'll listen. I'm filing complaints with the DA, the state bar, and anyone else I can think of. I'm making sure this becomes a very public, very messy fight. You'll lose that fight. Maybe, but you'll lose too. Because even if you win, everyone will know what you did, and that's going to make your life very difficult. Paxton leaned back, looked at Linda, then at Paul. Give us a moment. I stood up, walked out of the conference room, stood in the hallway. 5 minutes passed, then 10. Finally, the door opened. Paxton gestured for me to come back in. I sat down. We're willing to compromise, Paxton said. We'll delay the conservatorship filing for 30 days. During that time, you'll undergo a psychiatric evaluation. If the evaluation shows you're competent, we'll reverse the authorization. If it shows you're not, we proceed with placement. No, that's the offer. I said no. I'm not submitting to a psychiatric evaluation. I'm not giving you more ammunition to use against me. Then we're done here. Paxton stood up. We'll file the paperwork this afternoon. I stood up too. Go ahead. But understand this. I'm not going quietly. I'm going to fight, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you did. I walked out. As I reached the elevator, Linda called after me. Tom, wait. I turned around. She walked over, lowered her voice. Don't do this. Please. Why not? Because you're going to lose, and you're going to end up in a place much worse than where we're trying to put you. Then why do you care? She hesitated. For the first time, I saw something in her face that might have been genuine. Because you're my brother, and I don't want to see you destroy yourself. You already destroyed me. You took my house. You took my life. What else is there? Tom, I was trying to help you. You were isolating yourself. You weren't taking care of things. You thought wrong. I got in the elevator. The doors closed. Linda stood there, watching me disappear. I drove back to the motel, packed my things, checked out. I wasn't staying there anymore. If they were filing conservatorship paperwork, they'd track me down, have me picked up. I needed to disappear for a while. I drove to Tony's place in Arizona, called him on the way. Tom, what's going on? They're filing emergency conservatorship. I need to lay low for a few days. Come out here. You can stay with me. I got to Arizona that evening. Tony had beer and pizza waiting. We sat in his living room and I told him everything. When I finished, he shook his head. You're screwed. I know. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, but I'm not giving up. Tom, sometimes you have to know when you're beat. I'm not beat. Not yet. He sighed. What do you need from me? Just a place to stay for a few days, until I figure out my next move. You've got it. I slept in his guest room. First real bed I'd been in for weeks, but I couldn't relax. My mind kept racing, thinking about Paul's face, Linda's voice, the way they'd all looked at me like I was the problem. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe I'd pushed too hard, gone too far. But I couldn't stop now, because stopping meant letting them win, and I'd rather die than let that happen. I stayed in Arizona for 3 days, laying low, waiting, thinking. Tony tried to convince me to let it go. They're going to win anyway, he said. You can't fight this. Not without money, not without lawyers. I don't need lawyers. I just need leverage. You don't have leverage. They have your house. They have your accounts. They have legal authority. What do you have? I have information. I have evidence. And I have time. You don't have time. They're filing conservatorship paperwork right now. Any day they're going to come looking for you. Then I need to move first. On the third day, Michelle Harding called, the reporter. Mr. Brennan, I've been looking into your story. And it's complicated. I spoke to your sister. She says you're having a mental health crisis, that you're paranoid and unstable, that the residential authorization was for your own protection. She's lying. I also spoke to your son. He says the same thing. He's genuinely worried about you. They're both lying. Are they? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like a family trying to help someone who won't accept help. I felt the anger rising. Did you look at the document? Did you see the formatting? I did. It's unusual, but not proof of fraud. Your lawyer could argue it was deliberately concealed, but without testimony from the notary or evidence of coercion, it's just your word against theirs. Then talk to the notary. I tried. She won't speak to the press. Says it would violate client confidentiality. What about the properties? Did you look into those? I did. Your son's properties are struggling financially. But that's not illegal. Lots of people make bad real estate investments. My sister co-signed the mortgages. She's financially dependent on their success. That's motive. It's also normal family behavior. Helping your nephew buy property isn't a crime. I closed my eyes. So you're not running the story? I can't. Not without more evidence. I'm sorry. She hung up. I sat there, feeling the walls close in again. The DA wasn't moving fast enough. The State Bar wasn't investigating yet. The press wasn't interested. And every day I waited was another day they got closer to locking me up. I needed to change tactics. Stop playing defense. Start playing offense. I called Jerry Pacheco. Tom, I told you, I can't help you anymore. I'm not asking for help. I'm asking for information. The Garden Grove property, is it still red tagged? Yeah, and it's going to stay that way until they replace the electrical panel, which they can't do because they can't get contractors. Why not? Because word got out that someone's sabotaging their projects. No contractor wants to touch it. Good. Tom, this is destroying your son's business. He's losing thousands of dollars a day. If this keeps up, he'll lose the property entirely. That's the point? Jerry was quiet for a moment. You're really doing this. I'm really doing this. What happens when they file conservatorship? What happens when you're locked up? I won't be locked up. I'm going to end this first. How? I'll figure it out. I hung up. Tony was watching me from across the room. What are you planning? I'm going back to California. That's a bad idea. I don't have a choice. Yes, you do. You can stay here, let them file their paperwork, fight it from a distance. I'm not fighting from a distance. I'm fighting face to face. Tom, listen to me. You're not thinking clearly. You're angry, you're hurt. But if you go back there and do something stupid, you're going to end up in jail, or worse. I'm not going to do anything stupid. Then what are you going to do? I didn't answer, because I didn't know yet. I left Arizona the next morning, drove back to California, straight to Garden Grove. It was mid-afternoon when I arrived. The building was still red-tagged, signs posted on the doors, no occupancy, violators subject to arrest. But there was activity inside. Through the windows, I could see someone working, installing new electrical panels. Someone had finally agreed to do the work. I parked across the street, watched. 30 minutes later, Paul came out of the building, talked to the contractor, handed him what looked like cash. They'd found someone willing to work, and they were paying under the table to make sure it got done fast. I pulled out my phone, called the city inspector's office. I'd like to report unpermitted work on a red-tagged property. What's the address? I gave them the address. What kind of work? Electrical panel replacement. The property is currently under a fire marshal's red tag. They're doing work without clearing the violation first. That's illegal. We'll send someone to check it out. How soon? Within the next few hours. I hung up, waited. An hour later, a city inspector showed up. Not Jerry, someone else. He got out of his car, walked to the building, started talking to the contractor. Paul came out. There was an argument, voices raised. The inspector was shaking his head, pointing to the red tag. The contractor packed up his tools, got in his truck, left. Paul stood there, staring at the building. Then he turned, looked across the street, saw my truck, saw me, our eyes met. He pulled out his phone, made a call. 10 minutes later, a police car pulled up. I stayed in my truck, waited. The officer got out, talked to Paul, looked over at me, then walked across the street. Excuse me, sir, can I ask what you're doing here? Sitting in my truck, on a public street. The property owner says you've been harassing him, following him, interfering with his business. I'm not harassing anyone. I'm sitting in my truck. He says you called the city inspector, reported unpermitted work to shut down his project. I saw illegal work being done on a red-tagged property. I reported it. That's not harassment. That's civic duty. The officer looked skeptical. Do you know the property owner? He's my son. That stopped him. Your son? Yes. And you're reporting him to the city? He's breaking the law. I'm reporting it. That's how the law works. The officer rubbed his face. Sir, I don't know what's going on between you and your son, but I'm going to ask you to leave. If you continue to harass him, we'll file a complaint. I'm not harassing him. I'm exercising my rights as a citizen. Sir, leave now. I started my truck, drove away, but I didn't go far. I parked 2 blocks away, waited. My phone rang. Linda. Tom, this has to stop. Why? Because it's working? Because you're destroying your own son's life. He's going to lose everything because of you. He was willing to destroy my life. Why should I care about his? Because he's your son. Because you're better than this. No, I'm not. You made sure of that when you tricked me into signing that document. Tom, please, I'm begging you. Stop this. Let us help you. Help me? You locked me out of my house. You tried to steal my money. You're trying to put me in a facility against my will. That's not help. That's theft. It's not theft. It's Stop lying. Just stop. I know what you did. I know why you did it. And I'm not going to let you get away with it. Then what are you going to do? I'm going to make sure you lose everything, just like you tried to make me lose everything. I hung up, sat there, breathing hard, hands shaking. This was it. This was the end game. I wasn't going to back down. I wasn't going to give up. I was going to push until something broke, and it was going to break soon.